Hello everyone, and welcome back to part 5 of the Item Toolkit Meal Handbook 217 module tutorial. In part 1, 2, 3, and 4 we learn how to create MIL-217 systems, generate and customize reports, use the import-export of data and bill of materials, and perform what-if analysis for our systems as well as generating charts. Here in Part 5, we are going to learn how to build and use component part libraries in conjunction with our projects, making our data entry easier and more consistent for our projects. Let's start by opening an existing project with a MIL-217 system. Here we have a small system with 2 blocks. In Block 1, we have 10 capacitors with part numbers and adjusted physical parameters. Similarly, in Block 2, we have 10 resistors with part numbers and adjusted physical parameters. It stands to reason that the physical parameters for any component always remain the same, but the application may differ from project to another depending on what criteria is required by the end user of our system. So let's build a library using this system. As I have mentioned before, Item Toolkit environment has a monthly document interface whereby more than one project or library can be opened at the same time, and systems, blocks, components can be copied from one project or library to another. I'm now going to open a new library, and once it is opened I can go back to my project and copy the MIL-217 system and then paste this system to my new library. Once this is done, we can then go ahead and save this library. Let's call this library MIL-HDBK-217 Parts Library. Let's now close this library as well as my original project. Now we will start a new project and build a new MIL-217 system with capacitors and resistors. While I am building this system, you will see that the components are set to default values for the physical and application parameters, and the failure rate and MTBF calculations are updated on the hierarchy. When I select one of these components, you will notice on the General Parameters tab there are no part numbers or notes, as these are the generic or default values. Similarly, on the Physical Parameters tab, the default capacitor style and capacitance, and so on. The same goes for the resistors when we look at the General and Physical tabs. In order to use my library to populate the correct data sets for my capacitors and resistors, we will need to upload the library that we built earlier, and once uploaded, we would be able to look up part numbers and import them from the library. To do this, we first need to select the project window, as the libraries can be for any module within the project. Once the project window has been selected, then we can go to the File menu and select the Library Lookup Manager. We see that a new window opens up, allowing us to choose a path to our library or multiple libraries if needed. We can browse and select our library, and once selected, we can choose to load one or more libraries. I will choose to select just the one library that we built and load this on only, and immediately we see the number of blocks and components that have been loaded into memory. One system, 2 blocks, and 20 components. We can now go back to our new system and select the first capacitor. Next to the part number parameter, we can see a search button, and when we click on this button, we can then go ahead and select the option to search library. Now the part number drop-down will load all the parts within the loaded library based on the component category that we are editing, which in this case happens to be a capacitor. So, all these part numbers that we see are all capacitors in our library. When we select one of these, the general and physical parameters for this component will be updated with the contents of the library. We can then go ahead and populate these components from our library very quickly. The best way to manage your component parts library is to have an engineer dedicated to building and maintaining this component parts library. The engineer can then make the library a read-only format and place it on a shared drive within your organization for all engineers to access and utilize for new and existing projects. Let's now look at how we can import a list of part numbers in conjunction with an existing library. Let's open our exiting library and export the part number in this library. I will now select the File option Export, and then select the Blocks and Components table to be exported and only the part numbers to an Excel file. Let's save this Excel file and then view the contents. As we can see, there is only one column on our Excel sheet called part number. Let's close this and show you how we import just this column in conjunction with the library that we created earlier. Let's open a new project and create a new MIL-217 system as our target for our import. Now let's load the library that we built earlier, the one that we exported the part number from. Once this library is loaded into memory, we can go ahead and start the import procedure. So, File, Import, select or start the import process and use Auto Match and match all to the final window. In the final window, we see the option to look up parts in library, and once I select this, the import process will look at the data being imported, and if the exact same part is within the loaded library, the part will be recognized with the corresponding component categories and physical parameters. You can see now how an extensive library would make it easier for engineers to build their system much quicker, and more importantly, knowing that the library and all the general and physical parameters within it can be fully relied upon. I hope this series on Item Toolkit MIL-217 has been helpful, and we would welcome your feedback and comments or request for further videos on the MIL-217 module. Simply contact us by sending an email to support@itemsoft.com, and I shall see you in the next series.